My name is Jen from New Day Literacy, and I would like to personally welcome you to this recording of my workshop about choosing curriculum for your dyslexic homeschooler with less stress. I hope you find it informative, and please feel free to reach out if you have any specific questions. So a little bit about me since we're meeting for the first time. So I live in California, and in California, we have public charter schools, and the charter schools, homeschooling families can sign up with these public charter schools. And so I am one of the coaches for public school homeschooling students. It's kind of an interesting model. I don't think any other state does what California does. And so I have been working with homeschooling families and students since 2012. Yeah. And it seems like a long time. And then most recently, over the last few years, I've become a certified dyslexia interventionist. So now I feel like my eyes are open to my homeschoolers' needs, where I didn't really even recognize it myself a couple of years ago. I didn't know what to do with dyslexic kids. So I've worked with parents and students over the last 12 years. And then I'm also an Orton Gillingham tutor on the side. So after work, I work again one-on-one with kids that are in public, private, and homeschool as well. And I'm just curious, where are you guys coming from? Are you on the East Coast? Anyone on the West Coast? I'm in Southern California, like 15 minutes from Disneyland, which is kind of fun. Oh, Arkansas, awesome. Oh, and Pennsylvania, okay. All my family's on the East Coast. Sorry, someone's coming in. I have been displaced in California for like 20 something years. Just been kind of interesting. Okay. Oh, South Carolina. I think that's the only SC I can think of online. Oh, in Boston. Okay. I lived in Boston I went to college there and then stayed there for another 4 years. And yes, I do online tutoring. It's probably right now it's about half and half in person, half online. And just a quick plug for online tutoring. If you are considering that, this is not part of what I was going to say, but it actually works. It can work a lot better than I even expected myself. So, so that's definitely something to at least keep in mind. Okay, so let's get started. So how do you now, I'm just curious, how do you now choose your reading curriculum? Like, do you do a lot of research? Maybe you have hand-me-downs, maybe someone else gave you curriculum and so you just use that. Maybe you're in a program where your curriculum is chosen for you, because I know there's some programs where you sign up and then they do the curriculum selection and you just have to buy it. So I'm curious, now what do you guys do? And you can unmute or put in the comments, like, what's your process for picking curriculum? Or are you stuck and you don't really have a process yet because you're not sure? Because it is, the amount of materials out there, I think, is expanding by the hour. It's like the cereal aisle. There's so much to choose from, which I think makes it harder. It used to be a few things like a Becca and Sunlight and a couple other things, but now there's so much. For anything, yeah, it could be reading or just all subjects. Okay, so so you're looking at curriculum. Okay, awesome. Yeah, and that's why I chose curriculum to do for this workshop, because I know a lot of parents are trying to plan and thinking about starting school at the end of August or September, and it's better, the earlier you kind of figure things out, the better. So you feel like you start on track and not like you're playing catch up. Heard good things about Orton Gillingham. Yes, there are some really good Orton Gillingham materials out there. Okay, so you're having, I think this means you have an OG tutor, homeschooling co-op. Okay, IEW, pick your own. Okay, awesome. And then math. Yeah, math can be tricky. I mean, the whole thing, it's homeschooling is no joke. There's a lot of pieces and things to pay attention to. So that's what we're going to talk about. Okay, so this workshop actually can apply to pretty much any subject. My focus is reading, so I'm going to be talking about it in relation to reading, but all of these things are things that you can apply to picking science curriculum, math curriculum, social studies, and anything else that you need. So these are the 6 things that we're going to cover. in the order that I think you should consider them. So the first thing is your child's needs. It's really hard to pick the right curriculum without actually understanding what your child needs and where they're at. We're going to talk about red flags, like things to avoid, things that I would just be like, I'm not using that at all, and not even give it a second thought. We're going to look at green lights, like things that are positive signs about curriculum so that you can feel like you're choosing the right thing and be confident in that. We're going to talk about supplementary materials. I'm going to make some loose recommendations at the end, even though knowing there's no one size fits all. And then we're going to have time for Q&A. And that's what I'm actually most excited about, is the Q&A at the end. Okay, so your child's needs. So it's so overwhelming to pick curriculum, and there are so many options, and things can look great, but if you don't know what your child's needs are, then you may end up with a mismatch. So your curriculum should match your child's needs, and that may or may not align with their current grade level. So you could have a 10-year-old that is working at a kindergarten reading level, and that is totally okay, because there's no way to treat them like they're reading like a 4th or 5th grader if they're really not. And so we really have to know what their level is and what their skills are in order to pick good curriculum. So let's look at that a little bit more specifically. So the first thing is the child's skills. And you may not know, and you may need help from someone to figure this out. But what are your child's current skill levels in reading, spelling, and writing? Also handwriting, I would throw in there. And if you're thinking about math, you could also include that. Because if your child is still not sure about the whole alphabet, every single Orton Gillingham tutoring student I have had, despite their age, even middle schoolers, have had some parts of the alphabet that they were not sure of. Like they didn't know what sound certain letters made. And I would have never believed that had I not seen it over and over again. So if you don't know that your child may be struggling with the alphabet, they may be struggling with vowels, they may be struggling with 2-syllable words, then when you pick curriculum, you might pick something that is too advanced for them, because you might think, oh, well, I have an 11-year-old. Of course, level 2 would be appropriate because that's made for like 4th graders, and you think your child's a little bit behind, so you'll get something that they might have needed a couple of years ago. But the reality is your child may actually be even further behind. And that's not meant to be bad news. It's just meant to be like reality. And then you can meet them where they're at, which is the best thing you can do. You don't want to pick something that's going to feel more frustrating to them. I see this a lot with the homeschooler families that I work with my job. They really want to pick materials that match their child's grade level, or maybe just 1 year behind, but their child is going to be frustrated by it. And then you as the parent will feel frustrated, and then it's just better to go back further than you might expect. But if you don't know their skill levels, it's just a guess. You're just gambling and hoping. So there are people that offer educational assessments. I do this for my tutoring students, but you can find someone maybe in your area who will do an assessment and tell you that your child knows this and they don't know this, where their strengths are, their weaknesses. Sometimes the neuropsych reports where you get a dyslexia diagnosis will offer some information, but it doesn't tend to be as specific as what you might need to know in order to choose curriculum. So that's the first thing I would do. See what your child's skills are. You could even start with just having them write down the alphabet from A to Z and see what happens. It's amazing and fascinating. You think, oh, that's a simple task, and you'll see that they get stuck, and then they may not even be able to finish the alphabet. I've seen that a lot. And then once the alphabet is written down, have them tell you the sounds that the letters make. And oftentimes you'll find with dyslexic kids, they'll say for the letter C, they might say that it says S instead of K. Now, sometimes it does say S, but more commonly it says K. So that will give you an indication of things that they might not really know as well as you think. Okay, your child's uniqueness. So where do you know your child needs help, and what are their unique challenges? So you could have a child with dyslexia that also has dysgraphia. So then that means you're going to have to work on the dysgraphia at the same time as the dyslexia. Your child could have ADHD, and then that's another thing that you have to take into consideration. The beauty of homeschooling is you get to do all of this. You get to think about your child holistically, as opposed to just a one-size-fits-all model. But it's really good, even maybe to write it down. Like, what are your child's strengths? Where are they struggling? And then figure out ways to address that. And then lastly, the grade level. So the goal is, in my opinion, to have your child work at grade level, but in the meantime, because sometimes they can't work at grade level, meet your child where they're at. So if you have a fifth grader, in California, fifth graders learn American history. They probably, if they're behind in reading, can't read American history at the level that they would need to as a fifth grader if they were a typical fifth grader, but you could do audiobooks, you could read to them, they could watch videos. So you want to make sure that they're getting what they need for their grade, but at the same time, you're shoring up those reading and writing skills and handwriting, because you can't just put them in the deep end of their grade level if they're not ready for that. Okay, so let's move on to red flags. So not all curriculum is high quality, even if it has a stamp on the front that says it's like science of reading, or it comes from a well-known publisher. There's a lot of really lousy curriculum out there. And so we're going to talk about some of the things that you want to be careful with. So I think about it like nutritional facts. Like, I cut out sugar a few years ago. Sadly, it's better, but it's sometimes miss it. So I always have to look at the labels, because it's amazing what sugar is added to. And so when you are looking at curriculum, you kind of have to think about it like this, like, what is in here? Because what's in there might not be good for your dyslexic child. It actually might be harmful, and it might cause your child to not make progress, because what is put in the curriculum isn't actually useful for some children, for any child sometimes, but especially for dyslexics. Okay, so you want to look for the sequence, and we are going to talk about this a little bit more in depth in a minute, but you want to look for if the sequence of skills makes sense. So if you open up a teacher's manual or a curriculum guide, and first, if there is no sequence, that's a problem. So if you can't really tell what is going to be taught, like, are you starting with short vowels, moving to consonants? If you don't see that series, then that's a problem in and of itself. But look at the sequence and if it makes sense. So it should go from easiest to more complex, and more common things in reading to less common. So you should see short vowels, consonants like S, T, N, M, before you see consonants like Z, Q, W, the ones that are a little less common. So the sequence should make sense, and there should be a sequence. Another red flag to look for is memorization. So does the reading curriculum teach via rote? Oh, and I just realized memorization is spelled wrong. Okay, via rote memorization. So is there a big emphasis on your child seeing words like on a flashcard, and they're just supposed to recognize the word the way it looks, not think about what it means or what the letters are or what the sounds that are represented are in that letter, but they're just supposed to memorize it? That is a big red flag. And a lot of curriculum has focused on that, and then kids end up, they appear to be reading, but they are not actually reading. And I forgot to ask, can you guys see the screen? Everyone can see the slides, I hope. On my end, it looks like it. Let me see, I'm going to open up the chat. Yes, okay, good, thank you. Okay, and then the last one is instruction. So in your curriculum, is instruction actually emphasized? So is there a piece that the parent or someone else is supposed to do? Or is the material kind of like, here's a little explanation, and then your child's supposed to just go off and run with it and practice and review as if they could do that easily without any instruction? So every time I meet with an Orton Gillingham, one of my tutoring students, I have a plan of instruction. They don't just show up. We don't do their homework. We don't just wing it. There's something very specific I teach them at every single lesson. And so good curriculum has a plan of instruction, and you as the parent, or if you have someone else helping you, that role for you should be really clear. And if the curriculum doesn't include instruction, then there's also a problem. For a while, there's been kind of this emphasis on kids exploring. And if they just explore things, like if they read books and you just give them things to work on, they'll kind of pick it up on their own, pick up the patterns, and that's actually doesn't work, especially for dyslexic kids. Okay, so let's look at green lights. So curriculum needs to include certain things. So you want to avoid the stop signs, the things that could be problematic, and you want to look for a curriculum that is complete. So you should be covering, and this may not all be in one product, and that's what's kind of hard about reading, writing, handwriting, spelling, is that it may not be found in one thing. You may have to have something for handwriting, something for phonological awareness, something else for phonics. It's unfortunate, but that's just the way it is. But you want to make sure that you're covering everything. So PA stands for phonological awareness or phonemic awareness. You want to make sure phonics is covered. And with the caveat of thinking about your child's skills. So if your child's phonological awareness and phonemic awareness skills are fine, then you don't have to address it. And so this is why knowing your child and what they can do and what they are not able to do yet is really important. But you should probably have phonics if your child's still struggling to decode. You need to address spelling because spelling and phonics reading go together. You want to have your child writing. You want to be working on vocabulary, handwriting, and comprehension. And when I was writing this slide, I was like, oh my goodness, that sounds very overwhelming. But some of these things like PA, the phonological or phonemic awareness, handwriting, some of these things can be done in like 10 minutes a day. So this shouldn't be like every single component needs to take the same amount of time. But if your child is struggling with handwriting, you want a program, even if you're piecing things together, that include all of what they need. When you're looking at curriculum, you want to make sure it's evidence-based. So look for terms like structured literacy. So that means that it's organized in a way, like I explained, from easy to more complex, from more common to less common. SORs, you want to look for science of reading. That's a really big buzzword right now. And a lot of people are using the SOR term for things that aren't actually SOR. That's another issue. You want to look for evidence-based. So is there research behind this particular product? Orton-Gillingham, that's another good sign. And then multisensory, because it really does help kids, especially dyslexic kids, to be experiencing their learning with more than just their eyes and their pencil, but to be talking and listening and moving things around, and making words with tiles, different multisensory activities. Okay, and I'm just letting someone in. And then the last thing you want to be a green light is if the product or the creator of the product has designed it for dyslexic kids. Is it dyslexia friendly? So if it is dyslexia friendly, it'll include that explicit instruction where you are teaching or someone is actually teaching. It'll include practice. Dyslexic kids need lots and lots and lots of practice. Do not underestimate the amount of practice your child might need with certain things. And then is review present? Because you don't want to introduce something to a dyslexic child. Like let's say you introduce the suffix ed. You don't want to just spend a couple weeks on that and then never see it again. It should be something that's continually reviewed because dyslexic kids need that. And most kids need that, but especially those struggling with reading. Okay, so let's take a look. So this is what I do when I find a new program or curriculum, or I hear about something on Facebook and maybe I haven't used it before. I look for the scope and sequence. So I am going to, hopefully this will continue to share. Yeah, you should be able to see it. Okay, so what I did is I literally Googled all about reading because this is a popular and pretty good dyslexia friendly reading curriculum. And I just Googled all about reading, scope, and sequence. And what's awesome is that they have it very, can you still, I don't think you can still see that. Oh, there it is. Okay. So they have it really well laid out and they tell you exactly what is going to be covered. And this is one of those things to be looking for. If you don't see something like this, that is a red flag. So they're explaining that you're going to be blending, and they tell you exactly which letters. They're showing you which vowels, which consonants, that you're going to be learning about periods and exclamation points and all sorts of things. And they're showing you the sequence of instruction. And that is a really, really good sign. Okay, so another one we're going to look at is UFly. So I don't know if you're familiar with, and if you are using any of these, please, you could put that in the chat or chime in. The University of Florida Literacy Institute has a lot of great resources. They created a manual, like almost 2 years ago, I think. And it's mostly used in classrooms, but it can be modified for homeschool use. And when you go to their website, you can see if your school doesn't have a scope or sequence, click here. So we can click there and we can look at their scope and sequence, I think, except it keeps popping. It keeps making it like a, let me see if I can find it. I think it's hiding behind here. Sorry. Okay, for some reason, let me see if I can pause this. Okay, this is why I shouldn't have done an update right before. Because the pause button is missing. Okay, well, you can go to this website and the scope and sequence is there. It's just for some reason hiding behind this window. But again, just like All About Reading, they show you exactly what is taught. And they show you where the ending point is too. So you know, okay, well, once you get to this point with the manual, you might need something else, but you have a plan. It's like a map for you as the parent teacher. Okay, and then, so we're going to look at a couple that I didn't think looked very great. I know someone might use these, and I don't mean to, I don't want to offend anyone if they're using these, but I'm just going to show you what I found problematic about this. So I went to Real Reading Co. I hadn't heard about this till last week. And so I just found one of their products. And let me see if I don't think I can zoom in. You should be able to see the little red laser. So I went to just their description about alphabet letters part 3. So this workbook, blah, 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 it teaches the digraph CK, like in the word sack, which is fine. The trigraph CKS. Okay, that's what caught my attention because CKS is actually not a trigraph in the sense of the way they are saying. It's not what they're saying. So CK is a digraph. It's 2 letters that make one sound, but the S on the end, like in the word sacks, is actually an S making the word plural. Like you go from sack, one sack, to sacks, more than one sack. And the fact that they are showing it as a trigraph instead of showing the morphology that there's actually a suffix, I would not use this product because you want your child to be able to spell the CK digraph and then add suffixes or prefixes to words and understand what they're doing. This to me is kind of muddying the waters for kids to compare CKS to X, like socks versus box, because those are two different things are happening. So I wouldn't use a product like that where there's kind of some confusion about what's being taught. Okay, and then Easy Peasy, which I know is popular. Let me see if I can get back to, I don't know what's going on. Okay, let me see if I can click on it. For some reason, it wants to take me back to the other slide. I had this problem earlier too, and I'm not sure why. Let's see. Okay, Easy Peasy. So I've heard of people using this, some of the homeschooling families that I've worked with before, and they have a pretty extensive explanation of what they do. They have a lot of products. It looks like it's pretty affordable. But if you look at the lessons, everything looks like it moves pretty quickly. There are letters introduced to every lesson, like lesson 3, you're introducing the B, lesson 4, you're introducing the D, lesson 5, you're introducing the F. The way they present it to me looks a little confusing, and I just think the pace of this could be too quick for a dyslexic learner. And so, easy peasy may be working well for some people, but I would not say it's dyslexia friendly because it's moving at a very quick pace. And you as the parent would then have to figure out how to slow down and how to change it so that your child gets the extra instruction and extra practice that they need. And I think that would be more work for you as the parent. So a program that moves quickly like that, I probably would not recommend either. Even though there could be good things about it, I would just say why use something that you're going to have to modify as opposed to finding a good product that you don't have to do much with. Okay, let's move on to supplements. So supplements are not meant to be used as complete programs. So sometimes parents find something like ABC Mouse. And if you go to the ABC Mouse website, it actually says it's a supplement. So supplements are meant to be for enrichment. Many supplemental materials provide enrichment and extension. So it's just meant to be extra. Supplements are used for extra practice or to cover what is missing. So if you have a curriculum that doesn't have a handwriting component and your child needs handwriting practice, you might have to buy a supplement for handwriting, which is totally fine. But if you're just using supplements, like if you just get a writing program, like writing to put ideas on paper, that is incomplete because you're not addressing the phonics or the phonological awareness or the handwriting. Other things might be missing if you're just using a supplement by itself. So, and a lot of the supplement material websites, like I said with ABC Mouse, they actually tell you exactly how they were designed, like the Hegarty phonological and phonemic awareness curriculum. It says it's a supplemental material. They don't want you to just get that and use it alone. So supplements should be used with other products and not as standalone. Okay, so I was hesitant to make recommendations because there is no one size fits all. And you really need to go back like to that first slide where we talked about your child's skills. So I could recommend something, but it might not really be the right fit for your child based on what they need. But I knew people would want recommendations. So for phonics, I like UFly. That's that University of Florida Literacy Institute. That's the scope and sequence that I couldn't pull up. I think their program is great for phonics. It's, I think, $80, so it's very affordable. Everything is laid out for you as the parent. They have a ton of materials that you can use online for free on their website. So you could peruse their website and check these things out. I think it's excellent. And it's really good for you as the parent if you're not quite sure what to do, because the designers have done the thinking for you. And good curriculum has been designed well to make you as the teacher, parent, not have to do all the work. You shouldn't be creating curriculum from scratch because it's a lot, and it's easy to miss things, and it's easy to not do it the way would work best. So UFly, they have thought for you, and they've made it very affordable. All About Reading, I recommend this one a lot to my homeschooling families. Just do the placement test to see what level your child would be at. Logic of English, I think, is maybe even a little better than All About Reading, and it includes more. It includes handwriting. I've seen, I think they also have a writing component, like putting ideas on paper. So that's a bonus because you get more in one product. And then Pinwheels looks good. I don't personally have firsthand experience with Pinwheels, but I went through their website and did the scope and sequence, and it looks good from what I could tell from the information that they put out. For writing, IEW and EIW are good. And then I personally like the Writing Revolution. It's not a scripted writing program, but it teaches you as the parent how to incorporate writing in everything you do. So you could create writing activities based on math or social studies or science. And studies show that that's actually the best way to learn to write is when you're writing about things that you're already learning. When you buy a standalone writing program, you could be writing about like panda bears, which is great. But then you're learning about, Albert Einstein in your science curriculum, and there's kind of a disconnect. So the Writing Revolution, it's like $25. I use it with my Orton Gillingham students, so it's affordable. But it teaches you how to connect those two things, the writing with what you're already doing. And once you get the hang of it as the adult, it's awesome. And it just enhances what they're learning in the other subjects and kind of creates that bridge, which I think is important. And then the other recommendation or things to consider are classes or tutoring. And I know someone in the workshop here is using a tutor. You've probably thought about it because homeschooling dyslexic kids can be really challenging. There's no shame in paying someone to help you do this. I have a music degree. I got a music degree before I got an education degree, and I paid someone else to teach my daughter how to play piano. Even though I could have done it, sometimes it's just good to offload that to someone else. And maybe someone who knows more or is more highly trained, and then you can entrust them with that. There are also a lot of good classes. You just want to also, just like with the curriculum, looking at curriculum closely, you want to look at the classes closely. Like there's a lot of classes on OutSchool. Some of them are not good and some of them are great. So being able to tell, because you don't want to put your child in a class that's not going to help them, and then they'll feel further frustrated. Okay, so that is it for the information. I hope I wanted to leave enough time for Q&A, so I didn't want to go too quickly. So I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm also going to stop the recording if I can figure out how to do that. Stop, pause, stop recording.